What's up YouTube, Cowboys here, back in another video where I talk about cards, money, investing. Today we're going back to sports cards and pulling out my old sports card stash right here. Wait a sec. It's very light. What is this? Alright, cut. What's up YouTube, Card Boss here, back with another video where I talk about cards, money, investing. Today we're going back to sports cards. Now, not literally investing in sports cards, but to talk about sports cards in general and my view of the state of the hobby, so to speak, right? And more so to answer some of the questions from some of the viewers on my channel, right? How come I'm transitioning completely into the Deadpools and the Incredible Hulks for Marvel? Why is that the case? Have I lost interest in sports completely, or has my interest just shifted to Marvel, or what exactly has happened? Okay, so to kind of like clear the air, right? I am still super interested in the NBA. I'm actually following the games. Okay, Orlando Magic is still unfortunately my favorite team, but sports cards in general, in my opinion right now, it's kind of in a very weird situation, and it's not a situation that we haven't seen before. In fact, this is kind of like looking at a pre-pandemic kind of situation, not about the prices but more so the interest, right? So sports cards interest, fan base, collectors, to some extent investors, has always been around for a number of years. It's just that during the pandemic period, where we had the lockdowns, the COVID, stuck at home, we have influx of monies coming in, we had the Last Dance, so many catalyst points that kind of like give the sports cards a huge jump start and got it to the heights of where we saw between 2020 and 2021. Now that all of that has kind of like slowed down a bit, we have seen a lot of pullbacks in terms of prices for a lot of cards across the market. Things like, I use example, Kobe Bryant rookie cards, Topps rookie cards. For the longest time, those base paper rookies that were basically ungraded, it could be bought for between $20 and $50. It saw PSA 10 saw a high of $1,500, pulled back to $800, and now it's just hovering around $300 for a PSA 9. Right? You talk about PSA 10 Kobe's actually moving up to the north of $5,000, and people are thinking that it could even go even higher than $5,000. It has pulled back down to the levels of $1,200, $1,300, which is roughly about fair for a Kobe Bryant base rookie card in a PSA 10 holder. But what does that mean for the other cards in the market, right? Like I have in front of me here, if you have some of these cards are perhaps familiar, which you have seen in my channels: Prism Silvers, Optic Holos, Mosaic Silvers, right? I did a video about it where I was still bullish that these cards were kind of like underpriced, especially for the PSA 9s, because you were entering at a low cost base, right? And boy, was I wrong, right? The prices continue to be depressed and pushed down on these silvers. The cards they are still in demand, which we're going to talk about it in a bit later, okay, are definitely not these silvers, right? I was completely wrong about these silvers, and in fact I had to actually make a decision to kind of like scale back down on my holdings, because I was literally holding almost like 100 copies of these silvers and holos across a few different players, right? We have Michael Porter Jr. here, Zions, a couple of Lucas, not many. We have Trace, I had Shays, and I had Ja. So a mix of players across all the different silvers and holos, but they didn't really turn out very well, and I took a significant loss onto these, which is I would say somewhat painful, but necessary move for me, because I guess some of you may have a different opinion, whereby if you're out of the money for some of these cards, it's okay not to sell and kind of like hold on to a bit longer, which I think that a lot of people right now, whereby with holdings that's currently underwater per se, right, just holding out, waiting for the things to clear, or recouping back to the levels. I guess maybe eventually sports will get its jump start again. Who's to know, right? Playoffs is just around the corner. Maybe that will spark the interest again for sports cards. But for me as an investor, I continue to flip my capital to make the best use out of it, and it seems that moving into stuff like Marvel, where we are seeing significant high double digits percentage growth, even multiples X's in terms of growth there. So it's only, for me, it only makes sense for me to pull back capital, even taking a sum of a loss from some of these silvers, for example. It's as high as like 30-40% losses on some of them. I could give an example, like let's say like Michael Porter Jr. I had a Prism Silver, which I bought about $100 previously, and it was just selling for about 55. I think it was like maybe like 50 after fees. So that's like 50% loss, right? Now you could say that, you know, MPJ is just coming back from injury. There's going to be interest again, but again, these cards, right? I believe that the interest for Michael Porter Jr.'s cards, yes, there will be some out there. You know, some people out there will chase back these cards. They are a low cost base. People going re-enter back into the market, but I believe the investor money into these sort of cards has kind of like waned, and the focus is back down to the true collectible cards, right? You're talking about RPAs, the autograph cards, the patches, numbered serial number cards. Not so much on the parallels, where we saw a big craze from the mid 2019s to the around 2020, 2021. You know, the chase of number parallels, the rainbows and stuff like that. It's gone back down to the old school, whereby we're looking for RPAs, the patches, and even going back to older sets. I think there's a lot of interest in going back to older sets. My readings on this, it's very extensive, but it's, for me, it's a lot of capital to go back into the market, whereby I do not foresee that there is going to be huge spikes. There's definitely going to be growth and interest, you know, depending on what the kind of cards that you buy. You know, Lucar RPAs, NT RPAs and stuff like that definitely will always have interest, right? But when we're talking about growth percentages, right, and in terms of balance, mixing between how much capital you're going to deploy onto a single card versus a bunch of cards, right, it makes sense for me that Marvel would be the stronger play at the moment in terms of deploying capital. And it led me to a decision to actually sell off a bunch of my holdings. In fact, most of my holdings. I would say that in total, my overall NBA card portfolio has decreased by close to 85 to 90% in total, right? Like these, like I said, these silvers here are basically the remains of the stack of like literally 100 or so silvers, right? I'm just keeping this because it's a kind of a pattern. Like I kind of like keep two of everything, like a 2 hollow MPJs, 2 silvers of Trey here, 2 hollows of Ja, 2 of Zion. So kind of like just a little bit of a hedge, but I guess eventually in the next like 1 week or 1.5 weeks or so, I might eventually just sell everything and just put more money back into Marvel. I'm still pretty bullish on the investing side for Marvel. Will the prices continue to spike up over there, you know, to earn 3-4s, 4-4s? I think that the easy money has been made in Marvel. Right now, it's more like coming through the, I would say, the difficult part, you know, of finding deals. Okay, I think all of us in the sports card will have experienced that. You know, after the easy money phase during the pandemic period, we're then coming into the really digging deep into looking for deals, and we did experience a lot of that in early 2021, early 2021 to the first quarter to April 2021, and slowly start to see the pullback. In Marvel, definitely there is the pullback, especially like, for example, the PMGs. We're seeing some of the PMGs just flooding the market at the moment, but previously it was so scarce, right? And people were paying thousands and thousands of dollars for those Marvel PMGs. Right now, we have literally lots and lots of PMGs into the market, especially in Goldin auction, right? It's coming up in they just announced that they had, I think, 85 PMGs into the market all at once, which is not even sure whether or not the market as small as Marvel absorb so much inventory, right? So if you talk about sports cards, the market for sports cards is so much greater than Marvel, whereby an action like that will kind of like still keep the prices steady, because there is still lots of demand across a lot of the fan base for sports cards. But for Marvel, that still remains iffy. So that, in my opinion, would be like a turning point for Marvel. So it's time will tell on that. But nevertheless, besides the PMGs, there's still a lot of interest and there's still a lot of potentials in the other kind of cards, whereby I do foresee better growth returns versus, for example, a hollow, or for example, in this case, a mosaic silver, right? So like, for example, this Zion PSA 10 silver sells for about like, I think, 250, 300 at the moment. This was my cost basically raw before I sent for PSA for grading. I believe I paid like maybe 350, 400 raw, paid like, you know, $50 or it's $100 for grading. It's back on the PSA 10. I'm actually underwater for a PSA 10, the top of the line, right? And Zion's not playing. right? Will he be back next year? Sure. Will his cards go up again next year? Maybe, right? But I can't, I literally, as a sports card investor or as a card investor in general, you can't wait for maybes and if situations. You got to look at what the market presents to you in front and do the calculated risk, take the losses where necessary, and redeploy back into potential opportunities, right? So sports cards, my little advice for sports cards investors, if this is the only genre that you're investing in, it's going to be a bit of a tough ride for you. But I do advocate of going back, changing on the mindset to go back into, I wouldn't say high dollar cards like the RPAs, but focusing on those really scarce items, right? As opposed to trying to put together rainbows and parallels from an investment point of view. Bases definitely out, right? The time for base or greater base it's junk, right? I think you have seen some videos whereby you talk about PSA returns for base cards coming back from PSA for the orders for like a year ago. They're literally out of money. Even if you get a PSA 10 base year 2, we were talking about year 2 and all this, it doesn't even justify the grading fee paying the PSA. I've seen some videos whereby it's like it's a dread, having these PSA grades pop and then having a credit card charge only to know that the card that's coming back is not even worth the fees that you paid to PSA. But that's the game that we played in early 2020 to 2021, and now some of us have made some money. Hopefully whatever money they've made is able to cover back these negatives that you see at the present moment, which is kind of like what I'm experiencing right now, right? I took a punt on this silvers thinking that it's low cost base and it's gone further down, so I have to make a decision whether or not to maintain these silvers and hopefully it'll just come back to where it was, or to minimize my losses, or just take the plunge and cash out whatever capital I can to redeploy back into growth assets, not necessarily Marvel, but it could be anything else, right? But for me right now, my emphasis is on Marvel. For you guys, it could be other things that's outside sports completely, like NFTs and stuff like that. But where I see cards at the moment, especially for these sort of cards, parallels, right? It's kind of stagnant. And even for me, I was just thinking, is it the right time to kind of like put money into Michael Jordan Fleer 57 PSA, maybe a PSA 8 or something like that, or maybe a PSA 9, right? Even though it's going like $20,000, take some of the Marvel profits and redeploying back into a Jordan rookie card, which is something that I really wanted, a PSA 9 Fleer 57 for the longest time. But the investor side of me thinking that with that 20K, I could redeploy back into with higher growth returns to make it like 25K, 30K in a shorter period of time. But will Jordan asset, creep up to that levels or overtake that kind of growth returns for Marvel in this short period, let's say between 3 to 6 months? I really doubt it, right? Jordan assets are good assets to hold. I don't think it will depreciate a lot, but in this short period of time, I don't foresee, unless of course something amazing happens, or something unexpected happens, but I don't foresee those kind of assets growing to the same levels as, for example, like Marvel. So it's a good time to just redeploy capital and make some profits there, and perhaps if you choose to funnel back into the sports cards to angle into certain pieces where you think that there is long-term longevity in terms of investment potential. But in the short run, not the thing that I want to focus on. Okay, I definitely want to see where I can recoup capital. And of course, I'll keep my eye on the sports cards because there is some few pieces, like I mentioned, right? Certain RPAs, the Jordan rookies, they are flat in terms of prices, which still make good investment targets, but only on a super long term, because you don't expect to make easy money, easy flips like how we used to do back in 2020, 2021. All right, that's all I got to update for sports cards at the moment. I plan to do a very interesting segment to talk about my entire journey for sports cards, looking at my top investments, right, by player between the years 2019 to present, and to discuss about which of the players I actually made money on and why, and which I actually made loss on and why. More of an entertainment piece as opposed of true investment advice. So just look out for that one. It'll be quite interesting segment to follow. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Okay, do like and subscribe if you like to follow my kind of content. Okay, like I said, it's more of a pivoting to Marvel for the present moment, but I'll definitely leave the door open for sports cards. It's pretty fluid when you talk about collectible space, right? Marvel, the time for sports cards has had its shine between 2021. The time for Marvel is shining right now. Who knows, we actually may go back to sports cards again in the next upcoming NBA season. Alright, cheers. Thanks for watching, guys. Cardboards out.